couple more times in there. But Caleb, feel free to take us away if you want to start.
I'm excited. Let's go first. Fix the mix of 2024. We were just saying we started these in 2022. Here we are somehow already in 2024. Just
What happened?
just continuing on it. I don't know where all that time went. It's really crazy.
I blacked out.
Jake was drunk. 2023 is a blur. Oh, it felt like that went really fast, but hey, we're still doing them, and a lot of you have been with us the whole time. You come back every month. You're gluttons for punishment, as I always say. The rest of you who are new, a huge welcome. I saw that there were a lot of you that were new. We're going to have a lot of fun. This 3-day Fix the Mix challenge is always something we look forward to, and it seems to just be kind of like a really fun event for everybody. So let's hang out. Let's do it. Introductions. My name's Caleb Lovelace. I'm the Director of Education for Mastering.com. We have Michael Gilbride. He's the General Manager of Mastering.com. He's the reason you're here. He's been sending emails and text messages out. We have Jake Codeweiss here with us, mixer, mastering engineer, producer extraordinaire. He got signed to a record deal right out of the womb. In the delivery room.
I'm that kid.
It's earlier and earlier every time.
And he's been
20, 12, 6.
He does. He just keeps going.
I think it was a long time ago, and he's been doing that and touring and mixing and mastering, and he's a jack of all trades. And if you've been here before, you know he's an excellent teacher, and he's a mentor at Mastering.com for our education program. And then we have Rob Mazes here with us as well. He's been doing online education for engineers and producers about as long as anyone in the world. He started this, he kind of launched this whole space, and now he's the CEO and owner of Mastering.com. So grateful to have him and the little baby as well, the up-and-coming superstar, the next generation, either that or Rob's chest hair. To be determined.
Either way, it's the hair. The hair.
It's either the hair or the air, one of the two. And welcome to all of you. If you wanted to know who we are, though, we all work for Mastering.com. We have an online education platform for engineers and producers, and we do these live free events and tons of online courses and lots of content as well, just because we like to give back. Couple housekeeping items. If you haven't yet, once again, go to your chat settings and make sure that it's set to everyone instead of hosts and panelists. That way everyone can see your questions. You can be a community together. And then make sure you get in that school group so that you can have access to the replays. The replays will come out 2 or 3 hours after we get done every day. I just have to render the video and upload it, and then we'll send it out to all of you. And you can watch the replay. If you have to hop off, no problem. You can always catch the replay later.
Yeah, again, one more time, those replays are going to be posted in school. So I'll post that link a couple more times there in the chat. If you're not in there, click that link and you can get access to the replays.
Yep.
We'll also email them out later today too as well.
Yep. So what is this all about? Well, we're gonna do a live mix, pretty much from start to finish, over the next 3 days. Each session will run between 2 and 3 hours. They've gone over 3 hours sometimes, depending on how many questions you're asking, depending on how hard the song is. But most of the time, 2 or 3 hours per day for the next 3 days. We'll be able to mix this song live and answer questions. We'll also get into some mixing philosophy. We don't want to just show you, but we want to give you some takeaways in terms of mindset. Of course, the demonstrations. And then we'll give you an opportunity as well, if you'd like, to go and follow along to execute the things you're learning and do it yourself. Some of you are kinesthetic learners, so that's an opportunity for you to go do that. What's fun about this challenge? Well, we aren't going to hold back. If you've been with us before, you know we try to answer as many questions as possible. Jake is always here to, he's not going to keep some secret he's doing behind the curtains or anything. If you want to know what he's doing, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask it. But he's just going to really try to show you as much as he can over the next 3 days to give you as much information and be as helpful as possible. So we don't hold back here. We really want to help and give you as much information as we can. There's a lot of valuable demonstration. You get to ask and engage and ask a lot of questions. and be a part of a like-minded community. So that's really important too. We believe a lot in community. We've set up this school group for all of you. If you're not in it, once again, make sure you're in it. We have over 20,000 people in there, and they're all interacting with each other. It's a pretty vibrant community these days. A lot of people are giving advice and helping each other and connecting and collaborating. All good things. We love to see that. And, it's totally free. It's just something you can go and utilize and get the replays, but also just be a part of a community. Sometimes I think it's a little easy to feel like an island in this industry these days. Everyone has their home studio spaces and their dark basements. Can get a little lonely. It's good to connect with like-minded people. What's tricky about this challenge? Well, it is only 3 days, so can we teach you everything there is to know about mixing and mastering in 3 days? Of course not. That would be unrealistic. We don't claim to do that. It's not about that. We just want to give you as much information as we can and walk you through the process as best we can from start to finish. We also recognize that everyone's at a different level. Some of you are advanced. That's great. Some of you, I'd say, are maybe more intermediate. Also great. And some of you are beginners. And that sets a little bit of a challenge in some ways. Some of you are going to know some of what we're talking about and get some nuggets from us. Some of you are going to be totally overwhelmed and it's going to be over your head. The thing I want to say about this is really if you're advanced, be helpful in the community and take the nuggets that come along for you. If you're a beginner, be patient, okay? Take notes. There are going to be things that we have to fly past. We can't teach you every little thing about every plugin. A lot of that's Googleable or YouTubeable. We want to focus on big picture concepts. We're not going to focus on a lot of the little minutiae that you can easily search. So I would recommend if you are a beginner, get a notepad out or some sort of a text document on your screen and just take notes. If something's over your head, if you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about, write down what we're talking about and search it later. And then watch the replays and fill in the gaps. And this way you can learn even if you are a beginner. And you're more than welcome here. And for the rest of you, let's help the beginners. We also know that everyone's listening in different environments. That may not translate perfectly over Zoom, so let's be patient with that. If you are having a bad connection, try to get into a faster Wi-Fi spot. It should sound good coming over. So if it's not sounding good, it's usually a Wi-Fi problem. We also recognize that every set of headphones and every set of speakers is all going to sound different. So let's stay out of the weeds on, I think you should turn 100 hertz up 1 dB. It's like, all right, we don't even know if the rooms are accurate or all that kind of stuff. Let's focus on the big pictures. Let's stay there and we'll get a lot more out of it. In addition to better learning how to mix, we're also going to teach you to think like a mastering engineer. We are mastering.com. Our whole education platform is based around what mastering engineers understand about the whole process. We actually teach in reverse. So we start with mastering because it sheds light on the entire process. So we'd be remiss not to teach you some of that over the next 3 days. We want to give you some of that insight. And we'll find that after we're done with the mix sessions every day, so later today, for example, we're going to go back and teach you, if you were to send this mix to a mastering engineer, what would they understand about your mix? And this can help you get some insight. And we're going to learn some tools that will give you some insight that will help your mixes actually be better by learning to think more like a mastering engineer. So that'll be fun too. Those will come a little later in the process after we get through with the presentation for today. But now let's shift gears. Let's listen to the mix we want to fix. Jake, do you have that?
I do.
You want to pull that up and
I do.
show us what we have in store? It's actually one of your mixes. It's one of your songs, I mean.
That's right. Seeing that all right? You guys see that? See Logic? You should be able to see my rainbow colored Logic session here. Yeah.
That's right.
That's good. Sweet.
So for all of you who are listening to this is unmixed. This is how we received the stems. We didn't alter them. The tracks. We didn't alter them. So just be listening for what you hear. What problems do you hear? Let's take some mental notes. You can write them in the chat. Let's see what we need to fix over the next 3 days.
this is a song by Rube Scott called 30,000. Congratulations, Rube.
Go Rube.
Yeah, it's awesome. Hearing that?
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories lose truth. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace provided. Oh, told the time of war and healing. But Lord, it just might have touched the ceiling. Keeps me wondering.
Sweet.
Oh,
It's going to be
this one's
fun.
gonna be so good to see the after.
I think we can make this sound like a top 40
Yeah.
track for sure.
Certainly try.
Yeah, this is untouched.
For sure.
That's just raw vocals, raw everything. Super unbalanced.
That's one you're listening to in your headphones, and you're like, "This slaps," and then you take it out to the car, and you're like, "Dang, there's something here."
No.
Yeah, that one's. Oh, I cannot wait to see that one. That's gonna be so good. I love it.
Cool. Cool song. There's a lot of potential there. It's really raw right now, which we love because then we get to see the transformation more clearly. Sometimes we get tracks and they already sound like perfect.
It's called Fix the Mix.
But we're
No,
fixing the mix this time. Fantastic. That's what we're going to work on for the next 3 days. Pretty excited about that one. That's a great song. So let's switch gears to mixing. I'm going to give you a few high-level thoughts to take away today, and then we'll have Jake dive in and educate. But focus on the things, especially, that we're going to talk about. These are the high-level concepts that I think we try to focus on because we find that they're the things that can kind of move the needle the most. There's a lot of things you can focus on, but this is the stuff that most people struggle with the most. And if you can focus on that today and watch Jake put it into action, put it into a demonstration, I think you'll take some stuff away. What's the game plan for the next 3 days? Today's all about session prep, editing, and initial volume balance. Tomorrow, we're going to work on the frequencies, dynamics, and space for instruments. So we're going to be using our EQs, compressors, reverbs, delays, all that. And then day 3 is all about vocals, 100% about vocals. A whole day where we get to refine that totally dry vocal, make it sound like $1 million, make it sound expensive. So that should be a pretty good one. Which of these days, though, do you do the heavy lifting in? Where do you make the most impact on your song? Which process do you think makes the most impact on your song? I'll tell you, from my experience, it's really the stuff you do in day 1, the session prep, the editing, the initial volume balance, that really is 80% of the finished product. It can affect frequencies, dynamics, and space more than anything else. That's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And it's often what's skipped over. People skip the session prep. They're not really set up the right way. They don't do the editing. They don't realize the power of volume. And they get in there with their EQs and compressors, and they don't get the result that they want. So today we're going to talk all about that stuff and show you how powerful those tools are and give you a process for utilizing those in a beautiful way. Why are the initial parts of mixing process so powerful? The 80-20 rule of mixing. Session prep enables efficient workflow. I was given a cooking analogy here. I like to cook a lot. And when I'm cooking, if I just kind of get overwhelmed and I don't get a good session prep or a good prep to all the ingredients that I'm going to use, what I find is that I don't do a good job cooking that meal. If you just throw some ingredients in a pan and start cooking it, what you realize is, oh, I forgot to chop this thing, I forgot to cook this thing, I forgot to prepare this thing, and all of a sudden you're chopping an onion while the chicken's burning on the stove. Really good chefs have this term, French, called mise en place, which means I get prepared. I set all my ingredients out. I have everything chopped and prepared. I get all that part done because for chefs, cooking is an art form. And when they go into cooking mode, they don't want to have to think about that kind of stuff anymore. It's not about prepping anymore. It's about texture, flavor, spice, and heat, and acid, and sweet, and all that kind of stuff. And their mindset needs to stay focused there if they want to make a truly incredible meal. And that's how it is for mixing as well. If you set the session prep up, if you do all the editing, it's the same for editing. If you get all that done before, when you enter into that beautiful mixing mindset, you can tap into the emotion. You can focus on that and the creativity, and you can tell the story of the song. You're focusing on all that kind of stuff instead of being deep inside that mindset. All of a sudden you realize you haven't edited the drums and they're out of alignment. So then you exit that important mindset and all of a sudden you're chopping drums up. That's not the way. Get everything ready so that when you enter into that creative and objective mindset of mixing, you can stay there and stay focused. The other thing we're going to talk a lot about today, though, is volume is everything. This is a concept we use. Volume and gain, we should say, both volume and gain. It really is a very powerful tool that a lot of people don't utilize to its fullest potential. We're going to show you what that means today, to utilize volume to its fullest potential and to utilize it in such a way that we can be more intentional in this initial part of the process, which allows us to be more intentional in the rest of the process. When we get to the EQ and the compression and all these other things, we'll actually be able to work with a lot more intention if we follow this process and understand the power of volume. So let's talk a little bit about the power of volume. When I'm mixing, I like to think about 3 dimensions of space. I'm thinking about the listener and painting a picture for them with sound. And the way we paint pictures with sound is in 3 dimensions. We have depth. You can actually create depth in a mix. Things that are farther away are quieter. Things that are louder sound closer. And I've seen a lot of mixes where people just push everything all to the front. And just like everything's going all at once. And there's no depth. It just feels slammed and everything. There's no dimension to the mix. That's because they don't understand the value of depth. There's also width. We understand width. It's a stereo field, so as the listener's listening, they hear this stereo field from side to side. And then there's height, top to bottom. What makes a mix sound tall? Does anyone know what affects the height dimension of a mix? It's actually frequencies. We experience as listeners, as human beings that listen to music, as sound, we feel music. We feel it in our bodies. It's a visceral experience, and we hear things in a visceral way. Things that are low, I tend to feel more down in my connection to my feet to the ground or in my gut. Don't you? When I hear kind of mids, the warm mids, where do you feel those? I feel those in my heart area. It's like a warm blanket. And when I hear highs, they're up in my head. For example, the drilling noise of a dentist. Where do we hear that? It's right in our jaw. But in a good way, we also hear air above us and head voice. And as you utilize the power of height, you can actually make your mix sound tall if you spread things out and understand that process. So you can make them tall and wide and deep. And then when the listener hears it, there's just this beautiful dimension to everything. That's what we're going for with mixing. So volume affects all of these the most, if you think about it. Frequencies are actually most altered by volume. When we think of frequencies, though, do we think of volume? No, we often think of EQ. That's what affects frequencies in my mix, but that's not true. That's what EQs affect to frequencies about 20%. The thing that affects frequencies the most is by far volume. Think about it. Where we place stuff and the volume we place it at carries a lot more weight because everything has an innate frequency spectrum. Shakers don't have low end. They only have high end. Bass doesn't have high end generally. Kicks don't have a lot of high end generally. The level that I put that at in terms of volume is going to dictate more than any EQ ever could how tall or how balanced my mix is. And we have to think of this first. Before we ever grab an EQ, can I paint in this dimension first with volume, with my faders? If I turned this on its side, I could envision it almost like an EQ, and I think of it just like faders. The more I turn something up, more mids, more highs, less highs. 80% of this height dimension that I'm building is actually all done with these faders. It's all done with volume and gain. What about width? That's easy to understand. There's a reason they put the pan knob on the volume fader, typically on a console, because it is volume. You're changing the volume side to side. You're taking energy away from one side, you're adding it to the other. So we consider panning to be volume. And you paint with that during this phase. We can create width by placing things out, making room for them in the stereo field side to side. That's important. It's all done with panning. And then, of course, depth is most altered by volume. This is the one people most understand, but again, it's often a mistake that's made where people either have stuff that's too distant or everything's pushed up. Everything, you hear a lot of mixes where it's just all slammed, every instrument and every vocal, and it's all just like right up in your face. There's no depth. So we have to consider this dimension, and we do that with volume most specifically. It's all gain and volume, where I place stuff. Allow the listener to have experiences where they don't hear every little thing every time they listen. You ever heard a song where you listen on some good headphones or something, you're like, oh, I've never heard that before. It's beautiful. It's this little thing that they did, right? There's this journey they can go on with the song, continuing to explore it. And just in general, creating more depth by pushing some stuff back and having some stuff come forward and changing that relationship sometimes as you tell the story of the song. What do we want people to focus on in every moment? What's telling the story right now? Where do I want the listener's ear to go to in terms of volume? What stuff do I want to get out of the way in this moment? And when that changes, then I have to adjust the volume. We'll also learn, and we probably won't do this today, but we'll come back to this on probably day 3 with vocals, is that for your most important stuff, like a vocal, for example, dynamics should also be controlled by volume, not just compressors and limiters. You can do that too, but you have to really be much more intentional with the most important parts, whether it's a vocal or a guitar solo or something, to really make sure that every moment is perfectly heard, that every moment of intimacy is brought forward, that sibilances and things that pop out of the mix too much are controlled, and we need to be the ones that take charge of that. It's not enough to just let compressors and limiters do that part. We have to do that. And we'll talk about that on day 3, but we'll find out that dynamics are also most influenced by volume. So our main goal today, and what Jake is going to walk us through, is volume-only mixing. All we're going to use is the volume fader, gain, and the pan knob to create 80% of the mix. We'll show you by the time we're done with this that we're pretty close to a good sounding mix.
You guys might get some bonus stuff today too.
Oh, what are you thinking?
You'll see.
All right. Bonus stuff, potential, but this is the goal. Volume only mixing and realizing how far you can take it with just volume. I think it's a game you should play with yourself, a challenge you should give to yourself every time you go into a mix. How far can I push this with just volume? And then here's the intentional part. You're being intentional about how far you can push things with volume today. And that's really powerful. You're not having to fix stuff later because you've done this step correctly. That's a lot of intention. But you'll also notice as Jake works today that he's recognizing the stuff he can't fix with volume. So that tomorrow and the next day, he has little notes for himself. He's being kind to his future self in a way. And when he gets into tomorrow and the next day, what he has are these little notes that he can start with. And in that, you become more intentional. You're not just pulling up the session and feeling lost. You have a total direction of what stuff couldn't be fixed with volume. You're intimately acquainted with things at this point, and you can go into and dive into these notes that you've made for yourself. And by the time you're done with that, you're pretty close. Instead of just thinking you need to throw EQs and compressors and whatever else on every track, you have a lot more intention you work with the next couple days. Does that all make sense? Crystal clear?
Makes sense to me, Caleb.
Hey, I know it does. Should we dive into the demo? One's in chat if you're ready for that.
Yeah, 125,672. If you're ready to dive into the demo,
Cheers.
it's A,
Hey, Pacha.
A,
Hey, Pacha.
A. Okay. All right. Seeing some commas. No, I'm seeing some commas there, Nick. All right, we'll bring it up. See what we got going on. Pew, pew, pew. There it is.
Commas are for cowards, someone says.
You guys seeing the DAW? Seeing the ones in chat? Ones in chat if you're seeing the DAW? Yeah. Cool. Thank you. This is it. This is it, guys. We're in a session together now. Now we're in the studio. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to write it down before I dig in. Because otherwise, I just turn into spaghetti brain. So, number one is bussing. I'm going to bust this stuff together and kind of organize some things. Number two. I'm going to do some gain staging. Explain that when we get to it. Number three, get into some volume balancing. What's going on there? Today, there may be a couple opportunities to do some crazy editing. Editing? We don't typically do editing on these Fix the Mixes. But there's a few tracks I think we can talk about today. If we don't do the actual editing, it's going to bring up a few really good discussion points. So we'll get to that. I think that's it. Anything I'm missing here, Caleb?
So you've already organized these by type, it looks like, and you've color-coded them. So that's the work you've done behind the scenes. Not a whole lot yet.
That's right. Color-coded them. They were also off the grid. So I had to do some time alignment. So, I had to figure out the tempo. Had to scooch regions so that things were tight to the grid. All right, and that's just like selecting everything and just kind of like nudging it over to the left, nudging it over to the right until it fits, right? Otherwise, yeah, we're good. I mean, this is color coded the way I like to color code them. You do you. And now I'm just gonna kind of group these together, sending them to some buses. So I've got a drum bus here. Anything that's drum and percussion related, I've sent to a bus. And in Logic, these are called track stacks. And what's cool about these is that you can minimize or expand, right? Collapse or expand them. And it's nice for me, just for like a mental thing, right? It's a nice kind of, if I don't want to see all the drum tracks, I can just hide all the drum tracks, right? Kind of an organizational thing. So I'll go ahead, I'll bus the bass just for consistency, continuity's sake. There's only one bass track here, but I'm still gonna bus it. AC, those are acoustic guitars. I'm gonna bus those together. Call them guitar. And then these are all keys. Basically anything that's not drums, bass, guitars, or vocals, I just kind of lump together. And I might get a little bit more organized in terms of like nesting different buses within buses, but we'll get to that later. So I'm just going to call this a keys bus. And then I've got vocals. LV stands for lead vocal. So I've got a verse lead vocal, I've got a chorus lead vocal. And then I've got BVs, which are my backing vocals, and then harms, which are harmonies. And then there's an inhale vocal, an exhale vocal. We'll kind of discover all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to bus all of those vocals together. All right, that's about 45-ish tracks. I've also got a reference track here by One Republic. So 46, but 45 tracks down to 5 stems, right? Or 5 groups of tracks. That's it. For me, I just like to simplify, right? Get everything nice and organized. There's no question as to where everything kind of is in the session, right? Blessing. Ready? My favorite things to do is knock stuff off my list. Bam! Done. Any questions on that, guys?
Looks pretty.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to do this in your DAW, that is super Googleable. So just watch a YouTube video on it.
Ooh, somebody asked a good question. Your reference is on an actual track, not a plugin like Metric AB. Yes, and no. I have a reference track here in the actual session on a separate track. I've also loaded it into a reference plugin called Reference by Mastering the Mix. This is my favorite reference plugin right here.
So if you don't have that plugin, you can just pull it into the session.
We're gonna show you how to kind of do it both ways, right? Do it either way. Doesn't really matter.
My workflow, I actually don't use reference. I pull it into the session just like that, and it'll probably make more sense why when we teach you some mastering stuff later.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys. I know a lot of guys that work with A-listers that still just old-fashioned, pull the reference right into the session. It doesn't really matter. The tools are tools. However they work for you, however you make them work for you, you make them work for you. Well, I tend to go the reference, this plugin route. I just really like the display, and I always load in more than one reference. I always load in like 5 references or something like that. So I'll probably pull in a few more pop tracks or alt pop tracks or something later on. I also like the way that this level matches everything automatically for you. That's why I use it. No wrong way. Cool. Any other questions? We will go through referencing in a little bit more detail a bit later on. So sit tight for that. Dele Dele. I like your name, by the way. It's fun to say. Same for you, Caleb. Just sit tight. We'll get to that. We'll get to referencing. Difference in a DAW between grouping and busing. Technically there is a difference between grouping and busing. With grouping you can tie functionalities together, right? So you can create groups of tracks where if you just slide one fader down, all of the faders will slide down along with it. Just kind of like tying parameters together. But I don't know. It's kind of synonymous. When we say busing or grouping, it's kind of a synonymous term. Do we do this class with rock songs? Oh yeah, absolutely. We do a different genre, every session.
Principles are the same though. Doesn't matter the genre.
It's all the same. Cool. Yeah, stereo, it's not on 0 right now because I don't want to destroy your guys' ears. We may adjust that little bit later.
Yep, any genre. The same principles apply.
I have used Ableton. It's not my DAW of choice.
Yep, classical, same thing.
Cool. Let's move on, guys. I don't want to get too caught on questions. Just kind of hold on to them until we take the next kind of round here, and I'll try to answer. We'll try to answer as many as we can. Want to answer them all, but we got a bit to cover here. So, gonna move on to gain staging for now. Gain staging. Why gain stage? Just, I mean, in the digital realm, it's different now than it was years ago, right? But in the digital realm, if you're just like mixing with plugins, it's really just for headroom. It's just headroom, right? All of these tracks, they flow into a master. You know, they flow into one single track. That's your stereo out or your master, mix bus, whatever you want to call it. And for me, it's just giving enough headroom so that when I'm getting my initial volume balance, I don't really have to worry about clipping on that master. That's it. It's really as simple as that. I don't really do it for any other reason. So what we're going to do here is get each of these tracks peaking no higher than minus 10 decibels. So what I like to do is get the signal, like the average signal level of each and every track sitting between minus 10 and minus 20. All right, so average signal level coming into the track, minus 10 or minus 20. Let's start with this drum loop. So if we take a look at this drum loop, check this out. Dude, that is hot. Look at this. Look at it. You know, peaking minus 2.
Would you look at it?
Would you look at that?
Just look at it.
Peaking minus 2. Right. So what we can do here.
No, not LUFS. We need to make this clear. Not RMS, not LUFS. This is DBFS. It's the number on your volume faders in your DAW.
Yeah.
We don't in mixing. We're not really thinking about LUFS or RMS or any of that at all. Everything is DBFS.
That's right.
We'll think about LUFS and RF. We'll think about LUFS and RMS in the master.
Yeah, we'll get there. If you don't know what those are, write those down, and go YouTube those and Google those later. Dang. Right. So what we can do here is we can lower the gain. Or a little bit more, you know. Maybe a little more. See it now? Cool. We've got that sitting between minus 10, minus 20. And you can go through there and just kind of like check every single track if you want. 808, it's already sitting at minus 14 when it peaks. Not going to touch that. Percussion, right?
You can kind of tell by just the waveform.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you just kind of like take a quick look at it, you can see how fat the waveform is. It's probably sitting in the sweet spot, right?
Yes, right.
I'm going to show you a bit of a shortcut on how to do this, though. You don't have to do this manually. Most DAWs, you're able to use what's called a normalize function. So what I like to do is select all the regions in the session. And in Logic, it's right here. It's functions, normalize region gain, and then these settings. Individual regions, peaking, no higher than minus 10 decibels. Apply. Stand by. applying.
Bleep bloop. Again, we're doing this for headroom. If you do this, I promise you, you'll have headroom left when you get to the end of your mix, which is really important. You don't want to be clipping into your master, especially if you want to send it to a mastering engineer. They usually want 6 dB of headroom. If you set it at this at the beginning and you don't raise anything pretty much over 0, you're going to end up right where you want to be. So this is just setting you up for success later.
If my DAW will allow it.
David, you don't need to use a VU. You can just do it like this, but you can.
There it is. Done. Now if we take a look through, you'll notice that, just the size of all the waveforms are comparable to one another. Right? And that's a visual way to tell whether or not it worked. All right. If we were to go through and just like solo all these tracks, you'll see that they're sitting kind of like in the sweet spot, peaking no higher than -10. Right. See, just a quick look. Everything's kind of sitting. All the waveforms are at like the same fatness. Right. Cool. Super awesome.
Easy.
Easy.
Used
That's
to-
the shortcut. Normalization. That's the secret.
Used to do this by hand. This saved tons of time.
Well, saving time. Just a couple of time savers over here.
Cool.
Cool. Let's move on. What do you think?
Let's move on.
We'll select all of these tracks. I like to start down at -infinity. Oh, wait, before I do that, my favorite things to do. Bam! Ah, deleted. Another thing off the list. Going to volume balance, guys. Any quick questions before we head into this? You're cool. Ernesto.
You don't need to mix at 48, but it's probably good to do. I don't think it matters that much, though. If you have stuff that's at 44.1, then just mix it at 44.1.
Yeah, I just default to 48 and I don't really think about it.
I don't think it's a deal breaker, but it might give a little bit of clarity in the end.
Bit depth starts to become a little bit more noticeable
Mm-hmm.
for me anyway. Bit depth becomes more noticeable, but sample rate is just like maybe for like some heavy processing, I can barely, just very barely. It's like negligible though. It's not anything that's gonna. There are more important things to focus on.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. The end listener is not going to know the difference. If
Nobody
the
cares.
song's great and the mix sounds great, no one's going to be like, "Oh, I can hear the 1% difference between these two bit depths."
Dude, come on. I've heard the worst mixes on top 40. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Who cares about that? Anyway.
All right, so faders down to -infinity. Why are you doing that?
That's where I like to start from. -infinity, and then what I like to do is I like to bring in one anchor element to 0, and then mix it with maybe a couple of the most important elements of the track, right? And then I mix everything else around it. So what are the things that are kind of most important to a track, right? It's kind of a weird question because it's music, it's art, but there are some kind of like, sometimes it's just like obvious, right? Sometimes it's a slam dunk because of the genre or because of the artist's reference or what they're going for, right? For a track like this, to me, it's pretty obvious. It's the drums and the vocals. It's going to be a very drum heavy track. It's going to be a vocal centric track. It's a little bit more in the pop lane, alt pop lane. So I I would choose as far as an anchor element, I would choose the drum loop here. If I had a kick drum, I would start with just the kick drum. Maybe the kick and the snare and the vocal. For this track, it's just going to be the drum loop because that's what we have access to. I'm just going to start by bringing that to 0.
Which should be about -10 dBFS because that's what we just set the gain stage to.
That's right. There it is. Cool. Where's that vocal? Let's see what we got.
Lately, been thinking about the future, hey. About the sinking feeling in the hearts, hey, hey. Lately,
I'm gonna do some a little bit of kind of like macro dynamic work here in terms of gain automation. We're gonna get into the weeds and like the details of the vocal on day 3. But for today, just to kind of get like a little bit more of a consistent vocal from phrase to phrase to phrase, I'm gonna do a little bit of clip gain automation here. I'll show you what that's all about. First, what I'm going to do, though, is just something that I prefer to do for a lead vocal. And that's convert this from a stereo track down to a mono track. It's just annoying for me to be... to me, it's just annoying to work with a vocal on a stereo track and see both lanes when I know it's just... they're the same exact thing on each lane. It's just a workflow thing. Go ahead and bounce that down. Bounce that in place. Cool. So, now we've got this vocal.
lately, been thinking about the future, hey. About the sinking feeling in
Way lower, right? Both of these kind of chunks, these phrases are way lower. So I'm just going to kind of like gain that up a little bit so they're a little bit more consistent to the first.
about the sinking feeling in hey. About the sinking feeling in the hearts, hey, hey. Lately, been taking inventory. And all the stories moves, the blues some true, but it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises, but it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. We know it's gonna be peace with fighting. Oh, told the time of war and healing, but Lord, we just might have touched the ceiling. But it keeps me wondering.
Cool.
Lately I've been spending extra time praying about the condition of this human heart. Hey, hey, we can all look around and see that there's something so we can all look around and see that there's something so wrong, something going on that keeps us wondering how it's so.
Cool.
So if you're going to do some of this right now, I mean, we'll go into more automation like this for the vocal. As I was saying in my presentation, we need to make choices about volume on something as important as the vocal before we ever do any compression to it. He's starting that now and just doing big picture, like if something is obviously quiet, bringing it up. But we're going to even do more of this on day 3. So this is just kind of like general kind of balancing. But this is
Yep.
this is what I was talking about. This is the stuff you want to do manually with your ear, with your sense. You don't leave this up to the AI algorithm of the compressor you're using.
That's right, Caleb.
And take the time to do this. It's one of the most important things you can do. And you'll get a much bigger, better vision of that on day 3. Shane, yeah, you can get into Vocal Writer and all that. We'll get into all those options on day 3. There's several different ways of doing this. I wouldn't want to just use Vocal Writer, but it's one tool you can use as part of others. Remember, you got to make sure you're telling the story. You got to make sure that this vocal is exactly perfect.
Yeah, and that you have control over it if you want the control over it.
And you do.
And I do. So, just a couple notes about the vocal in the first place. I think Rube is a good singer. I think some of the tuning is probably a little bit messy in here. There are some moments that are kind of either obviously tuned or just need some like tightening up. So I'm not even sure if we're going to get into that. I might like touch some things, but not today. I think I'll probably get into that on Monday since it's a vocal heavy day, and I want today to like really just kind of be like a volume thing.
So look past the tuning. Look past that stuff. You
Yeah.
imagine that it's going to all be done, because we will do it.
And I do want to have a discussion about this. This is typically not mixing, right? Tuning a vocal is not mixing. That's a separate charge, right? That's a separate job, and it also takes forever, right? So you need to be like, if you're not charging for that, you need to be charging for that. I think a lot of guys, especially in the beginning of their careers, they'll take $100 job and they'll just throw about $2,000 worth of work into it, right? Which is, that's fair, especially if you're just getting your feet wet and stuff like that. But there comes a time where you can't be doing that kind of stuff, right? There comes a time when your skill level kind of surpasses that, and you got to just charge.
My
It's a
rule,
great job.
my
It's a good
rule,
job.
my rule is that if me throwing Antares on it can't fix it, then I charge for it.
I don't even do that.
I'm happy to throw Antares on something because it requires pretty much no effort from me. If it's like so close that I just throw the plug-in on, I won't charge for that. But if it requires my time, I'm going to charge for it, and you should. That's editing. It's a different process.
Yeah, sound design, any kind of editing, tuning, sound design, edit, post-production, layering, anything, any of that stuff. None of that is mixing. You're not gonna send a track to like a high-level mixing engineer and expect them to do any of that stuff. Like, they got to be tight tracks. They got to be tight. They got to be right. They got to be edited. And then all they do is toss it into the DAW, worry about getting the balance. Right? That's the job. That's the job.
Tongua, probably even before volume balancing. I would do all the editing stuff. I would do that before. Again, it should be done in the production phase or by an editor.
Exactly.
So by the time you start this process, you don't have to do that.
Right.
And
Which is why I wanted to talk about this today. It's very kind of, because we haven't really, I mean, we've touched on it in the past, but we haven't had a track that kind of brought us to this discussion in a practical way, right? So, yeah, any kind of like issues that we find with this track, they would be done before mixing. They would be pushing back on the production, right? And then only after all the edits have been made and any of the fixes have been made would the mix be actually greenlit.
Yeah, Ben, comping the vocal, all of that. not mixing. All done by the producer. Should be done. The producer should be producing the vocal. They should be making those choices.
Yeah, auto tune, like hard tuning, like hard auto tune.
Yep.
That's vocal production. That's
For
in the
sure.
production.
Yeah, mix engineers shouldn't do that because they don't know what your vision is of it unless you show them. Yeah, Joel, that's a good question. You got to communicate this with the client. Yeah. And you set these expectations before even taking a job.
Yeah.
You have them send you a demo and you go, okay, here's some thing. I'll do this and I'll do it for this price, but you got to do these things first and just create that clear expectation. Or you say, I'll do it for you, but I'll charge you extra because it's your time, and editing takes a lot of time. And it's not ideal too. It's not ideal even for the mix engineer to do it because now if I've done all the editing, I'm too used to the song. Like I don't have my objective ear anymore. I've listened to it for 4 hours, right? I want to hear it fresh and everything's right. And so I can just, again, enter into the cooking, enter into the mixing and keep that mindset.
Yes, sir. Anyway, just wanted to have that discussion with you guys because I think it's an important one to have.
100%. Very important.
And just something, I don't know, something to think about, something to consider. Nah, I mean. So, all of that being said, we might do some tuning on. We might break all those rules, all those things we just talked about. And I might show you some tuning on Thursday. Just as a teaching demonstration, if you guys are into it. It's totally up to you guys. Like,
in case you want to charge for it.
Yeah, I'm into it. If you're into it, I'll just hit you up via email, let you know where to send the check.
And we're doing it out of order. We recognize that our whole thing is like this should be done already, but we're going to do it in day 3. So all of us who are here, use your imagination that the vocals are tuned and sound great.
Teaching demonstration only. All right, teaching.
Yep.
Cool. Let's continue.
Yeah.
Let's continue. Right now we've got drums, we've got vocals happening here. This is like,
Lately, been thinking about the future.
This is like the 2 most important things to me in this song.
Hey,
Everything else in my mind is like a supporting role.
about
And we've got the groove, we've got the rhythm, and then we've got the main message of the vocalist connecting.
the sinking feeling in the hearts. Hey, hey, lately, been taking inventory. And all the stories moves, the blues some true, but it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. We know it's gonna be peace without him. Oh.
Those are going to sound great though. Those aren't that pitchy. They just don't sound fully polished yet. They're going to sound so good when we're done.
That they are.
Yeah, cool voice, Rube.
Yeah, it kind of gets, give me like that Coldplay feel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm just going to start bringing in some of this other stuff right from the beginning of the track. I like to bring stuff in from the beginning. I like to work through the song like from top to bottom and kind of mix based on when things kind of come in and out of the arrangement. That way I can kind of get like a chronological sense of how things are entering and exiting in the journey of the track, how a listener's ever going to really hear it, Yeah. I don't like to mix the chorus first or like the densest section first. I like to kind of go through the track from top to bottom. Nothing wrong with like starting with a chorus or anything like that. This is just the way I prefer to do it. A lot of stuff going on here. So we got in just this intro. So this is where this hits. I'm gonna go ahead and like mark this. Go up like this section here, and then instrumentation kind of like drops here. I think probably like intro B drops, and then we've got the verse here. Yep, and then this is the verse. Verse 1. Cool. Let's hit that intro. Let's get it. We can probably turn this stuff up so that it's not as abrasive when or abrupt when that kick drum comes in. It's better.
In fact, that's an example of why you start at the beginning. You just demonstrated it. It's like, oh, when the kick comes in, it's too much, so I got to turn these up to. You're just thinking of how it's all connecting together, right?
Yeah. Wait. Give me more than that. Slam me. I'm into it.
Lately, been thinking about the future, hey. About the sinking feeling in our hearts, hey, hey. Lately, been taking inventory, and all the stories moves, but lose some truth. But it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises.
Starting to feel this song now, guys. Already, we have like 2 elements in, and we're starting to feel the vibe of this song starting to evolve, right? Like this perk line, I think this line right here, honestly, I mean, we haven't brought in a whole bunch of stuff, but this instrument, filling in all those subdivisions, that's a super important part of this song. That's the thing that like gets you kind of like all the little movements in there, kind of like really gets that groove going, right? Gives you that, I call it the choo-choo train effect, right? That's just kind of like creates a lot of momentum and a lot of drive and a lot of groove. And that shaker is going to contribute to that choo-choo train effect here too, right? Chugga, chugga, chugga. We got that train going now.
Lately, been thinking about the future, hey. About the sinking feeling in our hearts, hey, hey. Lately, been taking inventory, and all the stories moves, but lose some truth. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, it's only time of war and peace.
so much masking going on.
First note of the day.
Feel 'em in the heart. Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey.
This is dilly.
We'll
This
get
is
in.
masking. This is masking. Right? Listen to this. When I have this synth active, that's how I'm gonna start, and then I'm gonna mute it. And I want you to hear how clear the vocal comes through the mix.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey. Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey.
That's masking.
That's a
Right, we've got two
great
instruments.
demonstration.
We've got two instruments fighting for the same space in the frequency spectrum, which makes both of them harder to hear.
Yeah.
Right.
Jake's going to carve that synth up like a Thanksgiving turkey
Tamari
tomorrow.
or the next day.
But who would have already reached for an EQ or a compressor?
Laser focus, guys.
Don't do it.
The
It's
main
too
thing's
tempting.
The main thing.
Imagine spending an hour carving that up and then you're like, what was I doing? It's not the way.
Mhm.
Stay focused. Just use your imagination and make notes.
About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey. Lately, been taking inventory. And all the stories moves that lose some truth. But it keeps me wondering.
A lot going on here. So I'm right now I am thinking about the elements that are really kind of like attention grabbing and unique. Those are the ones I want to bring in first. Like foundational elements and the ones that are like attention grabbing and unique. Everything else kind of like takes a backseat for me right now.
Sinking feeling in.
So a lot of the percussive elements that are entering the arrangement, those are the things that I'm focusing on. I'm not too worried as much about the pads right now. Let's keep going.
In the heart.
Get that bass in there. What? Like, why not? Come on.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey. Lately, been taking inventory. And all the stories moves the blue. Lately, been thinking about the future. Hey.
That's tough. I'll take that bass. I'm not gonna add that bass until very last. So this second track was literally just meant for like a volume boost, seems like. Oh. Okay, then we've got a sub.
Clicky, clicky.
Oh, okay. Sub, sweet. Save that as well. You know, I think that bap 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 bap, right? That's something that creates a lot of motion. That kind of creates a lot of vibe in this song. So that's something I really want to draw attention to. Everything else can kind of, again, just like be on a lower tier for me, priority wise. Those sounds are super cool.
I love those.
String in there. Oh, that's cool. Kind of little riser, kind of opens up, filters out.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories lose the blues.
That's a cool sound.
Hey, hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories lose the blues and true. It keeps me wondering. 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time of war and peace. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. Know it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time of war and peace. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. And all the stories lose the blues and true. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time of war and peace. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering. Lately I've
Hear anything wrong with that guitar?
Sounds funky.
it keeps me wondering. Lately I've been spending extra.
What's wrong with that guitar?
Little,
That's right. It's out of tune.
It's out of
It's
tune.
out of key.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even attempt to fix that. I would push back on that and say, give me new tracks. Or if I was an acoustic guitar player, I would mic up an acoustic guitar and just do it. Right?
For the sake of time.
Yeah, just to do it. You know, I would just replay it.
Maybe we can ask him about it. Maybe they got bounced at a weird.
I was gonna see if there are any acoustic guitar players here today
re-record, says Rube.
who would mind just re-recording this track. You know, just doing that, like playing exactly this part. I'm not even sure if this is a true double or if this is a fake double. Double track. Yeah, I would just double track that.
Yeah, tight double.
Yeah, just a tight double track of this fingerstyle guitar. If any of you guys can hit this and post it in the community,
Mastering.com t-shirt for whoever does it best.
whoever we pick. Yeah. It's like literally this. But in tune with the song.
It keeps me wondering.
Okay, we've also got these here.
Let's see if these are in better tuning.
And spending extra time praying. Hey. About the condition of this human heart. Hey.
So all of these parts would be pushed back on.
We could we could post that. We could bounce those out and post it. Just bounce those all as one, and then we'll throw it in school. Rube, you can send us it too. This is just for fun.
Yep, totally. Hoots my goots. Yep, 150. So for now, we're just gonna mute these. Recording is always an option. Ernesto. Recording's always an option. Or like if you really, really don't want to record it. You know, there's some other things you could probably do. All right, you can get a VST. You can get an acoustic guitar VST if you want. You could attempt to do some like tuning repair, but I've always just gotten the best results of just getting it right at the source.
Yeah, it doesn't usually turn out too great.
Yeah.
Guitar was just a little out of tune on the recording, so.
Cool. I'm gonna put a note in to do that. I'll bounce the guitar track as a reference. I'll bounce out the rough mix so you guys can hear what's going on with the track and where it needs to be. You can bring both tracks into your DAW and then just re-record. Like Caleb said, winner gets a free shirt. Woo! Let's go! All right. In the meantime, I'm muting those.
It keeps me wondering.
We'll just work without them for now.
I've been spending extra time praying. Hey. About the conditionals, you
Harmonic distance. What is that? It looks like a blank track. Rube? Oh.
Double-
Something in there. Huh. Like a reverb? Yeah, sounds like a reverb. Reverb for this track?
always moves the blue. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises.
Yes, really, really odd that it just didn't get normalized. I just basically manually
Just so quiet that even bringing
it
it
just
up
didn't catch it. Yeah,
ca-
it didn't register the signal even. I'll probably just add my own reverb here, but it's nice to have as a reference.
Yeah, it's cool. I like the vibe.
Me too. Or if we even need reverb, you know, we need reverb on it. There's a lot of elements here that we might be munching up the space. We'll see.
Lately, been taking inventory. And all the stories moves that lose some truth. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time of war and peace. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering.
Okay, I think we've got a lot of stuff in here. What are we missing in the beginning of the song? Probably just some vocals and some bass, right? This stuff all comes in later. We'll get to that. Just kind of focusing on the first third of the song right now, all the way up through the first chorus. That's where, because you get that right, like those are the first moments that any listener will ever hear, right? That's why I like to focus on that section first. If you can get that good, you just kind of dial in the rest. There it is. I love that big, beefy sub in there, man. That sounds great. Especially impactful when that kick drum hits. What's gonna kind of like muddy some things up for me here is that Moog bass. I think it's pronounced Moog. Just having like the high end on it is like, it's just gonna be Mask City.
Lately, I'm thinking about.
Let's see. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I think I'm gonna split it and probably send the highs to the sides. Either do a mid side thing there or split the track and literally just filter one and just use the highs on the other. I don't know yet. Oh, I don't want I don't want any like, I don't want any more frequencies. It's a saturation in big capital letters. No, I don't want any more frequencies on this thing.
It's got plenty.
I want less. But if you notice, like everything's very like there's a lot going on in the center of the mix right now, right? So there's plenty of room for things to be thrown around a little bit, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that tomorrow. Brian, we'll get to that tomorrow. I'll show you how I split the bass track tomorrow.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in our hearts. Hey, hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories moves the blues.
I gotta nail this thing, so we're gonna listen from the beginning again. We're gonna take a quick break. Now that we have everything else in, it's now vocal placement.
Lately.
Yeah, let's get that out. Width. Some width on that price wheel.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in our hearts. Hey, hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories moves the blues and true. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace divided. Oh, it's all the time I want to heal. But Lord, just not to touch the ceiling. It's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace divided. Oh, it's all the time I want to heal. But Lord, just not. It keeps me wondering. Lately I've been spending extra time praying, hey, about the condition of this human heart, hey, hey. We can all look around and see there's something so wrong, something going on that keeps us wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace divided. Oh, it's all the time I wanna heal. Lord, just not to touch the ceiling.
I don't know if that's intentional. let's get this choir. So I already know what I want to do with these. This choir track. What's this? It's kind of weird. I'm gonna keep that separate. Bounce those together. Let's call that choir. And I can't use any plugins today, right?
That's right.
So I'm just gonna put a note in here to create width with that. And we'll do that some other day. No plugins. Okay. Challenge accepted. Fine. Will not admit defeat. Check this out.
I know what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Take all of these, drag them down. And then I'm going to use this region delay to add 25 milliseconds to the double. And I'm going to swing those over to the right side. And then the originals that don't have a gain delay or region delay, I'm going to swing over to the left side.
You dirty dog.
Meh. How about that there then? Eh?
Golf clap. Hats off to you.
So before and after. Yes, that's a Haas effect, but just in a roundabout way where I didn't have to use any plugins. Caleb!
Well done.
And then I'm going to call that choir. Boom. Now let's listen to that.
Now it's only 30,000 sunrises. I know it's gonna be peace and Friday. Oh, it's only time I wanna keep. Lord, just
So the reason I wanted to spread those vocals out was because it was just jamming up the center of the mix, right? Like, talk about masking. I mean, we have, 4, 5, 6, 7 vocal parts on top of the lead vocal, right? So it actually becomes a little bit less defined. It's hard. It's just creating more separation here. So I'm using the left to right stereo field to spread those backing vocals out, declutter the center of the mix, and it does two things. It makes it gives those harmonies their own space, gives that choir its own space. It creates, actually it does three things. It gives them their own space. It creates width in the mix, right? Kind of widens up this chorus, which is the bigger part of the song, more exciting part of the song, a little bit more climactic. And it provides a nice center space for the lead vocal to poke through. We're in the center,
Yep.
right? So we can hear it more more clearly. It was more well defined. There's a little bit more presence to it. Well, I'm happy with that.
But don't do it like this. Just put a sample delay on there and put one side to 25. Much easier.
So what? Yeah.
All right,
What I
all right, Jake. I'll let you do it. I'll let you do that so you
Okay,
can show
all
the
right,
other way. All right.
just for demonstration.
Because
just for
because I feel like it's kind of width. We're painting with volume here. Oh,
I
it's a
always
cheat.
like-
It's a cheat. Whatever.
I do. I always use this technique inside of my volume balance because I'm thinking about because it's
Sure.
about
It's
left
a
to
kind.
right.
It's kind of a panning thing. It's not,
like,
but
yeah,
it
it
kind of
it's
is.
so funny.
all right.
so-
Do it the right way, and then so no one goes and does this.
Yeah, don't really do this, guys. Like, there's an easier way. Breaking the rules. Use a sample like a stereo delay and just delay one side.
You're all to the left, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, use a stereo delay and then just
20.
delay one side or the other side. You know, keep one side at 0, no delay at all, and then delay the other side by like, you know, somewhere between 10 and 40 milliseconds, somewhere in there. Right? It gives you the same effect. Same thing. It was just Caleb challenged me.
Hey, that was pretty. It was pretty slick. I have to admit.
They don't call me Slick Jake for nothing.
All right.
Nobody calls me that. Wow. Lot going on in that, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute these tracks to figure out which ones are really kind of like covering up the vocal. Which ones are fighting with the vocal the most. I think that's string 1. Let's say string 1. Probably a little bit of that synth crunch. The top end of that mode. So now these vocals pop through as soon as I like mute all of those.
it's gonna be peace, but fighting.
Yeah, let's pop those over to like the sides too. See
How it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace, but fighting. Oh, it's only time of war and healing. Lord, just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises.
You know, I might push back on those also. I think they're just generally just kind of loose. And the processing baked in is probably going to be an issue for us. I'm going to mute those for now.
How it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace, but fighting. Oh, it's only time of war and healing. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering.
So let's go ahead and do a little automation here. I'm using a gain plugin, and in the you know what? I don't really need to do this. Yes, I do. Just kidding. During all the choruses, I'm just gonna bring this down. Doesn't need to be that loud.
How it's 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace, but fighting. Oh,
It's
the Lord just might have touched the ceiling. Lately, been taking inventory. And all the stories lose, they lose some truth. But it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace, but fighting. Oh, it's only time of war and healing. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering
Hold that choir.
it's a good.
how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace, but fighting. Oh, it's only time of war and healing. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering.
Yeah, we are gonna have to carve the heck out of this section.
Yep. Jake, why did you use a gain plugin instead of a volume
Yeah.
automation?
I like to keep the faders from just like flipping back on me, right? So if I need to adjust the overall volume of the track, like the global volume of the track, I'll just use the volume fader. If I need to make, and then that'll keep my gain automation moves kind of like intact, right? So if I wanted to turn the whole track up, I don't have to worry about the fader just kind of like snapping back and forth or anything like that and not letting me do it.
Yeah, automation overrides the fader. So if you bake it in, then you'll forget and try to think you're turning it up, and then you won't be.
Yeah, that's super annoying. Let's keep going here. We are in a pretty good spot. Yeah, let's keep going. Let's bring that backing vocal in, see what that's all about.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories lose only 30,000.
I
did
thought
the same.
I think all those backgrounds with that crispy top end,
Yeah.
the ones you muted the other ones, but if we roll off some of the highs, they'll fit better and just be like subtle supportive elements.
I think so.
But the high end on those is too pokey.
Yeah, I think so.
About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey, lately, been taking inventory. And all the stories lose, but lose some truth. But it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time of war and healing. The Lord just might have touched the ceiling. It keeps me wondering. Lately I've been spending extra time praying, hey, about the condition of this human heart, hey, hey. We can all look around and see there's something so wrong, something going on that keeps us wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time I walk. Lord, just not a time. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, told the time I war and healing. Lord, just might have touched the ceiling. Keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000.
It's out of time.
It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000. Keeps me wondering
Interesting.
Did you nudge it?
how it's only.
Okay, no problem. We'll just get rid of that. That's a tough one. I mean, let's just see what happens. The 16th note quantize.
Try triplet 16.
I'm gonna change the algorithm first. Closest yet. You said you wanted to do triplet?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe eighth? I mean, the part is meant to be a 16th note.
Yep.
Look at that. Look at that. Yeah, and since like there's reverb baked in here, it's don't know if it's quite passable. I'm not gonna quantize. Again, guys, this is something that would be done in production, like before any of this. Yeah, I'm just gonna go manual, polyphonic, and just touch up some stuff. Yes, this would be like, if it's just this piano part, yeah, this is editing that should have been, that would be done typically. I have the final notes. Final notes being that off. Put it up. And this is the same section, I want to say. Let's go ahead and duplicate that. Let's see what we got here.
It keeps me on.
Nope, just go ahead and do the rest of it. That's fine. Maya he, Maya ho.
Nailed it.
Oh, crud. Sometimes it's just better to go manual. Oh, a little bit of a... Ooh. Okay, so here's what we'll do now. Got that in place. I'm gonna bounce that in place.
It keeps me wondering.
Okay, so this last one here, one of the notes was actually missed, right? Let's just use this one.
It keeps me wondering. It keeps me. It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering how it's only. Keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace without it. Oh, so the time I war and peace. Lord, just not to touch the ceiling. Lord.
Sweet. Let's take a quick, like, 5-er. We'll bring the rest of these tracks in, and then we'll call it a day.
All right.
Cool.
See you guys in 5 to 7.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. Then we're gonna put this to bed for the day.
Yep. Not a ton left to do today. Glad you did that though, Jake. Even though it was a rabbit hole, worth the demonstration.
For demonstration purposes. All good. We're gonna bring up a timer, not just any timer. My favorite timer. The Google timer. You can just type timer into the Google search bar and bring up this bad boy. It's my favorite timer of all time. Favorite timer of all time. Least favorite alarm. So I'm gonna shut that off. Go ahead. Press start. See you back here in 5, guys. 5 guys. Time's up. Bio break's over. Hope you got your refills in. Hope you emptied yourselves. It's time to get back to work, slackers. Let's do this. Let's get it. I'm gonna finish this up before Caleb gets back. Here we go. Right? Not much to do here.
It keeps me wondering.
Oh, great. Just what we need here. More strings. Just Josh in your room.
Know it's gonna be days without oh, so the time I won't be. No. Oh, just not touch the ceiling.
Ultimately, these are going to be pretty easy to manage because I'm just going to bust them together, you know, and then we can make some broad moves with these things that'll just kind of sit them really, really nicely in the mix and not compete with the vocal.
It's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be days without it. Oh, so the time I won't be.
These inhales. Turn that click off.
Touch the ceiling.
Let's get those in the bridge.
It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be days without it. Oh, so the time I won't be. No, just not touch the ceiling. No, just not touch the ceiling. But it keeps me wondering.
Wait. That's air thing. I think that's air thing. I think everything's in. Let's hear it from the top again, maybe make any kind of like final adjustments. Maybe get that sub back.
Lately, I'm thinking about the future. Hey. About the sinking feeling in the heart. Hey, hey. Lately, I'm taking inventory. And all the stories lose the blues and true. But it keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be days without it. Oh, so the time I won't be. But Lord, just not touch the ceiling. It keeps me wondering. Lately I've been spending extra time praying, hey, about the condition of this human heart, hey, hey. We can all look around and see There's something so wrong, something going on that keeps us wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be Lord, just not a touch the ceiling. It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering. It keeps me wondering how it's only 30,000 sunrises. No, it's gonna be peace divided. Oh, told the time of war and peace. The Lord just not a touch the ceiling. The Lord just not a touch the ceiling. But it keeps me wondering.
Dude, this is yeah. I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Yeah.
The vocal is the thing. Just getting that vocal tight and making sure that we handle any of the masking that's going on there. Getting that to like really sit really, really well in the mix is going to be the thing for this song.
Yep.
Everything else is like pretty well done here. I'm going to pass it back to you.
You ready for some info on mastering mindsets? And we'll also get to reference this a bit too, which will be cool. And thanks again. I mentioned it in the chat, but thanks again for all the Instagram follows. I noticed we got a ton from you guys, and we have cool contests on there and stuff, so you'll like that. Mastering at MasteringCom. Jake is at Jake Makes Metal, and I'm at real_Caleb_Loveless. So come follow us. We like to interact with all of you. Let me share my screen again. And let's talk a little bit about mastering mindset. Again, why do we do this? What's important about this? Our entire education program that we have called the Reverse Engineer is actually based around teaching in reverse, because there's a lot of perspective that comes from the later parts of the process. Mastering in particular is interesting because it's a limited process. There's only so much you can do to make it sound better in mastering. It's mostly should be for enhancement, but you can fix some stuff in there, but you're not going to be able to turn a Toyota into a Lamborghini. You'd be able to turn a Toyota into a Lexus maybe, and it's just limited. But there's another side of that coin, which is when you start mastering stuff, you hear all the stuff that can't be fixed in mastering, which are mistakes made earlier in the process. It pushes back on everything else. And that's very informative. What stuff do I need to make sure that I fix in the mix so that the master can be as incredible as possible? Well, I want to give you a couple mastering tools that you can use in your mix to make sure that you're on the right, that you're in the ballpark for what a mastering engineer is going to want to hear. And it will also be a useful tool to just make your mixes better. It's going to change your whole mindset about what to look for as a goal for mixing. So like I said, we like this end in mind perspective. Usually we learn, as producers first, like we play a guitar and maybe we get a DAW and we start producing, and then maybe we'll dive into mixing. But very few people learn mastering, and it's a shame because it can really educate you about mixing. Mastering will inform as you turn things up. Boy, it just makes all the problems that exist in that track only more apparent. And every mistake that was made from the first time that someone pressed play, and all the beautiful things too, but especially all the mistakes for the sake of learning, become very obvious to you, both in production and mixing. So it's a cool way to learn. It's a very interesting perspective. Let's learn how mastering engineers think. Those gray-haired, crazy dudes It's end in mind. It's holistically. It's global perspective. And it's broad and gentle brushstrokes. So we're limited, like I said, in mastering to, you're not going to surgically fix stuff. We make broad adjustments. We think about the track as a whole. We're thinking holistically. And we're thinking about the last thing, the end in mind. The very last thing, the very end, is applying that last limiter and bringing it up to industry standard volume. And that's the moment of truth. Even as a mastering engineer, if you did your job poorly up to that point, it'll make it very obvious to you when you push the volume of things. And mastering is not something we dive into a ton on these because it actually it requires earlier steps. Like in our education program, we don't start by just teaching you mastering. We actually start by helping you train your ears and getting your room super dialed in, because if you can't hear things correctly, then you can't train your ears correctly. And if you can't train your ears correctly, how can you possibly use the tools correctly? And what's the point in learning the rest if you don't have that? And with mastering, it's even more important. It's important in mixing too, but becomes even more important in mastering. That's the stuff we think about. So, again, let me give you a couple tools. The first is a frequency analyzer. We have 2 frequency analyzers up on the screen there. And what we're looking for and what makes masters sound great is balance. That's what you find as a mastering engineer. Stuff that comes to you in the low end is too much, or the mid-range is too much, or the high end is too much. It's hard to master, and you can't take it as far. And it's more than that. It's not just because it looks good on a pretty graph. It's because speakers like balance too. You know, these magnets and drivers and cones will tend to distort and over-respond to frequency buildups. It will take over the cone. It'll take over the vibrations, and they'll build up there, and then you don't have the clarity you look for. So it's actually an important psychoacoustic thing. You really need balance. So one of the things, again, that we look for in mastering is creating that balance. But if you can create that balance in the mix, even better. That's the proper place to do it, so that mastering can be more about enhancement. So let me teach you about these frequency analyzers. This is the PAS analyzer from Waves. It's really cheap. I suggest maybe pick it up. It's $29. You could use any analyzer. You just need to know what they look like when they are you just need to know how they work. Okay, so for example, on the right-hand side of that PAS analyzer that's on the right-hand side, that is a pretty balanced frequency response. It doesn't look balanced. It looks like a slope. Well, that's just how the PAS analyzer looks. It usually peaks around 60 hertz and gently slopes to varying degrees. We're not looking at all those little bumps. Again, we're looking at broad, general. We're not worried about the little stuff. But generally, that's kind of smooth sloping down from 60 hertz all the way down to 16K. That's what you want it to look like. That's what the PAS analyzer looks like on a really balanced mix. If you listen to a bunch of professionally mixed and mastered stuff, regardless of genre, it's all going to look about the same. It's all going to look kind of like that, which is crazy. You'd think it would all be different, but it's not. Balance is balance. And good mix and mastering is all about balance. Whereas on the left-hand side, that is not balanced. Has almost no high end. The mid-range takes a deep dive. It has tons of low end. The mid-range takes a huge dive, and there's no high end. So you can imagine what that would sound like, right? It would be super low end, muddy, and almost no high end, right? So what we're going to have Jake do as part of checking against a reference right now, but also just checking himself in terms of this volume-only mix that we've done. Again, we haven't done any EQ or we haven't done any of that yet. We're going to have him look at the mix through these analyzers to show you what stuff we can learn about the mix just by looking at these. It's a cool way to connect your ears and your eyes and give you information, inform you about the mix. Maybe stuff that you've gotten too used to that you can't hear anymore, whatever it be. It's cool. So let's check that out. And we will also probably use a reference here. He can do it both ways.
The end of the DAW. Guys, seeing the DAW? Give me a one. One in the chat. One in the chat if you see the DAW. Sweet. Super cool.
This is really, really cool stuff.
How it's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be a piece without it. Oh, it's all the time I war and peace.
What do we see there? Imagine imagine the frequencies. The low end is hitting at about what? Well, that's pretty low. It's actually hitting right down at like 20,
Yeah, it's real low.
which is almost to the point where the human ear is not going to appreciate it or hear it anymore. There may be some wasted energy down there, in fact, that we could clean up, and it's probably coming from the 808. What else do you see? The mid's down. Yeah, Bear, that's a good assessment. Those mids kind of, generally, we're not worried about the little things, but it's, and we know this, right? We've already been talking about this, that there's a lot of like buildup in that range. There's masking happening that we're going to have to fix tomorrow. The highs are dropping off a bit. There may be some room and energy there that we can add in the mix. We could go find the brighter elements and say, hey, maybe there's a little bit I can bring up there. Let's compare it now to our reference. Let's see what it looks like. We'll throw a Paz on the reference, and then we'll put it side by side with ours and see how close they are. This is another way of referencing, but we're not referencing like individual instruments. We can do that too, but this is just looking at general sonic balance. Are we in the ballpark? Is this something we would be ready to send to mastering?
Let's find out.
How it's only 30,000 sunrises. Know it's gonna be a piece without it. Oh, it's all the time I war and peace.
What are you seeing? Look, big picture. The sub is too hot, for sure. There's wasted energy down there, even below 20. You see that orange line? That's nothing anyone can hear. It's not even going to respond on most subs very well. It's not useful. It's useful in cinematic stuff. It's not useful in music at all. Our mids are definitely more. You can see the buildup there. There's a couple little sharp spikes. That's not what we're really looking at. We're looking at more big picture. And the One Republic song has more high end, just like we predicted. There's room for all of that. Now when we listen to the mix again, we go, how do we accomplish that? Where's the best way to accomplish all of that? It's really useful because mixes start to sound good to us the longer we've been working on them. We get used to it, and our ears start to like smooth over the problems. Now I can have a mental reset where I go objective information to an objective standard of a really well-produced song in a similar genre. Now I need to rethink and reset my mental approach. How useful is that if you just threw that on the end of your mixes so that at the end, like after your volume mixing phase, you could pull this up and go, oh, a couple more tweaks, now we're balanced. Super, super useful.
How it's only 30,000.
That's totally true. It's not about only using this. It's about connecting this with your ears to help you learn.
Maybe, I don't know, just turn that down a little bit.
Yeah, we'll probably need to apply some EQ to that. So we make a note for that. We probably don't need as much at 30 as it has. It's just wasting energy. We'll want that energy later. A mastering engineer knows that energy isn't infinite. It's finite. The more energy I save in places, the louder I can push it without it squashing or sounding bad.
How it's only 30,000 sunrises. I know it's gonna be a piece without it. Oh.
Not really losing anything there by
Nope.
just simply turning it down.
Just
in
turning it
volume.
down a little bit. We're already right there.
Now, to me, yeah, there's some kind of masking going on in here, probably more like this area, but overall, like ballpark, fine. This just needs to be pulled up.
Yep. What stuff can we find?
That's the biggest kind of like difference here. You'll hear it too. Like you're gonna hear that here in the reference track. Check this out.
Distance can do. If I let you get away, it's gonna be a piece without it. Yeah, I ain't gonna keep my
Right. So less low end, more high end. That's very straightforward, simple, like oversimplification of the differences here. Right.
Yeah,
Less
exactly,
low end, more
Carmelo.
high end. That's what it is.
know how it's only 30,000 sunrises. If I let you get away, I know it's gonna be today. Oh.
Yep. Just get rid of the mud at the high end, dial in the low end, tighten up that vocal.
It's cool. This is all
Give
stuff
that
we can
top
work.
40,
Yeah,
give that
exactly.
top 40 sound.
Yep. This is all stuff we can work on starting tomorrow. There's probably no big picture volume stuff to bring up the low end. It's probably just adding air to some of the synths, maybe some of the percussion. We can do that with EQ. But we're close. Jake, you got pretty close on that curve just by your intuition and sense. But I would, whatever analyzer you want to use, watch and listen to a bunch of music through it. Look what balance looks like on that specific tool. And by the way, pull up that PAS again. If anyone wants takes a screenshot, if you use the PAS, make sure you use these settings. LF res to 10. Detect down here to RMS. And then the response to 400. And that'll give you, if you don't do that, it doesn't quite look right. So use those settings if you decide to use the PAS. To get the kind of similar result to what we have here. Is that useful to everyone? One in the chat if that's something you could apply to your process just to give you information about your mixes.
Just to marry what your eyes to what you're hearing and your ears to what you're seeing. Just marry those two senses. Just get there faster.
Do you know if we have permission to share these tracks or?
I don't know. I saw Rube in the chat section. Are you still here, man? Here. Do you want to share those? Are you open to that?
Okay.
If you're not open to that, that's cool. That's like, yeah, I'm telling you, no pressure. There's 600 people like holding their breath, but really, truly, and honestly, no pressure to share these tracks if you're not open to it. Yeah, I know, gunpoint, totally. Yeah, that's sweet. Sure, why not?
Cool. Yeah, so what we'll do is actually give you an opportunity to work on this too.
Sweet. That's awesome. Thank you, Rube. That's really, really, really awesome of you.
We'll post the tracks in school so you can download them and follow exactly this process. Try our process, even if it's different from your own. See if it enlightens any of the parts of the process for you. The goal is a volume-only mix. So if you're working on a different track, that's fine too. You don't have to use Rube's. But if you have a song you're working on, try an alternate version. Start over. Remove all processing and plugins, but if you're working on Rube's, it'll just come in with none. do the process. Gain stage to between -10 and -20. Bring all the faders down to -infinity. Make sure all the prepping and editing is done. And then volume balance to the best of your ability. Use just volume. No plugins, unless I guess you use sample delay, so everyone can use sample delay.
No, you have to do it the other way.
And then feel free to share your volume-only mix in school. So get that far in the process, and then we'll go into the rest of it tomorrow. Then we'll get into vocals on day 3. By the end of day 3, hopefully we have this sounding really, really great. Jake, great work today, man. And thank you for all coming and staying and hanging out and being a great group and asking great questions, helping each other. Make sure you're in the school group. We'll post these for you to, work on, and we'll see you all same time tomorrow. We're going to dive into instrumentals. We're going to get those all cleaned up, clear out all the space we need for those vocals. Day 3, again, we'll go through the vocals. Thanks, y'all, for being here. Have a great evening. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.
Back to work, slackers.